Like, listen, Art, I don't like Stanley.
Stanley, the Navy man, thinks he's so wise. He reads all
I think the only person I have been
the
was Stanley.
squints in his eyes, spins still so wild, like ships in the sky. But whose words
And Nate, Stanley doesn't state the obvious. Like,
You don't think one parent influence is detrimental?
Yes, he does.
I literally said they need to understand that it's a white people problem.
Okay, it's called Stanley versus the world.
And just assume their character by stereotype?
I think people do that every day.
Okay, I didn't ask you.
What do I think it's okay?
At Big Think, and I run the Mini Philosophy Social Network, where I explain philosophical ideas to millions of people. I'm the author of the upcoming book, The Art of Enough, where I explain Epicureanism and teach everybody how it can apply to our lives.
Stupidity versus evil.
So Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a 20th century philosopher and theologian, and he's known for his writings, but also he's known for his resistance to the Nazi system. He was born in the early 20th century to a prominent, quite elite family. His father was head of psychiatry at Berlin University, one of the most prestigious chairs in the country. When the Nazis came to power and began the German Christian movement, where they tried to co-opt the Protestant churches, he ran a counter-movement known as the Confessional Church. When the war broke out, Bonhoeffer was part of the anti-Nazi intelligence, where he would feed information to the Allies and to the resistance movements all over Europe and in Germany. Eventually, the Nazis found out about this, and he was imprisoned in 1943, where he wrote a whole range of letters and diaries, from which we get these notes on stupidity, which I'm going to talk about today. He was associated with the plot to kill Hitler in 1944, and he was executed at Flossenburg concentration camp in 1945, a few weeks before it was liberated by the Allies. So in Bonhoeffer's letters, he talks about stupidity.
And let me pause this quickly. Welcome back, everybody. The good thing is I got some extra time to rest. The bad thing is I feel great in the mornings, but not so much by the evenings. But we shall suffer through. Everyone, please make sure you hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, and we got quite a number, maybe 5 or so new subscribers from the events that have happened over the past 24 to 36 hours. Where we are is CM decided to strike because I reviewed his material, and he wanted to basically say, hey, you know what? You got to pay me to use my material. If I did that, he would be the only one in this quote sector that requires that. And he's not that special. So I told him, no, I'm going to use it anyway. And he obviously didn't believe I was going to do it. And I obviously didn't believe he was going to strike. But I know, dude, I was on Ert's panel briefly talking about this behavior, CM. I was also up on Latinos for a different reason, but we wound up talking about it. And neither Latino nor Ert would even let him up on the panel. It's like, dude, you know, they say he's a snitch. Dude, even I know, and I'm square. What am I, an L7 or whatever it's called? Even I know you don't go striking people that come up on your panel every now and again. That's like social suicide. So, you know, our CM has some problems. Most of them are his own. And we had a brief dialogue, DMing on back and forth on Discord, which I'll talk about. But I know who the fuck CM thinks he is, but he's not my boss. He keeps saying he owns my channel. I'm like, dude, I'll fucking get the 3 strikes and lose the channel and start over before I let some CaliBlacc bozo take over my channel and dictate what I do or say, or how I do or say it. He's in over his head. So what's up, brother? How you doing? You know what? I did, brother of a certain age, and I apologize. Look, he may be some people's tea, but as it turns out, he's I don't even know if narcissistic covers it. But anyway, I don't think his channel is necessarily bad. It's his possessiveness, and he seems to think he's the HNIC of Black YouTube. He goes up on people's panels like Angry Man and Nightish. He just comes in hot. People sometimes don't even know who the hell he is, but he comes in hot. So, I think his channel is okay. I just think he is not okay. So I'm going to talk about, this particular incident after the video. And then there's just a brief aside. I was in Bob's Gospel of Bob's chat while I was cooking dinner, which is why I'm late, dude. I'm feeling kind of weak, and dinner took me way longer than it usually would. But anyway, this is basically talking about the 5 laws of stupidity. And in the past 36 hours, CM basically fits. He's following a lot of these laws. And I'll just leave it at that. The link will be posted here momentarily. It's the wrong link, I believe, but I'll post the right one momentarily.
Stupidity, and he makes this slightly bold claim that stupidity is a greater threat to civilization than even evil. But to understand that, we need to really understand what he meant by stupidity, because it's different to how a lot of us use the word stupid in our everyday lexicon. So what is stupidity? Well, it is not the same as foolishness. Foolishness is when you do something silly, reckless, imprudent. For example, if you put diesel into a petrol car, or I, for example, put washing up liquid in the washing machine and it caused a disaster. Or I remember at my son's last birthday party, he was gifted a plastic golf set. And so I was desperate to impress all of the other mums and dads. And so I got the golf club out and I whacked the ball as hard as I could, and it went flying over our gate into the road outside, hitting a passing car. That is an example of foolishness, but it is not stupidity in the Bonhoeffer sense. Nor is it the same as a lack of cognitive ability. So sometimes in life, you will run up against tasks which are simply beyond what you are capable of. In my own case, for example, I find flat pack incredibly difficult. So if it comes to assembling any furniture or even fiddly things like doing Lego, I'll often pass it on to somebody else. Even my 5-year-old son is better at making Lego than I am. But nor is stupidity the same as ignorance, because if you don't know something, that is either a lack of education or a lack of exposure to that fact. For example, if you don't know the capital of Indonesia, that is an example of ignorance. And then you go away and you find out that the capital is it Jakarta? I think it might be the capital, it might be Jakarta. And that resolves your ignorance. That is not stupidity. So Bonhoeffer is careful to say that those 3 things are not stupidity. But what is stupidity? Now, again, Bonhoeffer says that stupidity can be defined by 3 different elements. The first is when we outsource our critical thinking to some kind of third party. It might be a teacher, it might be a parent, it might be a social media influencer, or it might be technology. And of course, today, a lot of people do outsource their thinking to technology. In 2014, a philosopher called Robert Howell wrote a paper where he introduced a thought experiment known as Google Morals. And in the paper, he explains that we often use apps to do certain things for us. The most common is Google Maps. So even coming here today, for example, I use Google Maps to tell me where to go. I followed the blue line. It told me to go left. It told me to go right. And hey, presto, here I am. And most people are okay with using Google Maps, even if we use it for slightly imbecilic things. So, for example, if I want to go to Big Ben, and it's obviously there in front of me, people will still use Google Maps to tell them where to go to Big Ben in London. But we're okay with that because navigation seems to be a thing that we're quite willing to outsource to technology. But Hal introduced an extra idea. He said, imagine that the future contains an app called Google Morals. Now, Google Morals is an app where you would type in a question and it tells you what you should do in any situation. So let's suppose I go to a burger bar or a burger restaurant and I say, is it right for me to eat the meat burger or the halloumi burger? And the app does its whirring and it tells me, okay, you should do this. Now, the point isn't whether the Google Morals does the reasoning properly or not. The point that Robert Howell is saying is that we shouldn't be outsourcing our moral reasoning to an app. Now, this was written in 2014, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to point out the fact that a lot of people use ChatGPT and Claude and AI today to answer these kind of questions for them. Is it right to do X? Is it right to do Y? Should I cheat on my partner? Should I stay with my partner? Should I do this job or should I do that job? We are using AI to do the critical thinking for us. And that's an example of what Bonhoeffer would call stupidity. Now, the second element of stupidity is when we are willfully ignorant. I mentioned earlier how ignorance is itself not a form of stupidity, but if you are continuously ignorant and you don't take any steps to resolve your ignorance, well, that is an example of stupidity. There is an example in the ancient Greek world where the Oracle of Delphi was once...
Well, I'm just going to stop it here. The willful ignorance part, I run into it on a daily basis on YouTube these days. It's like, hey, I'm not going to go out and actually research what I'm talking about. I'm going to base it on some some yahoo that I heard say it on a YouTube panel and it sounds good. So, gee, I'm going to repeat it. It's like Be Brave is a good example. 70% of blacks excuse the 3% of the criminals. Based on nothing. Just his 70-year-old white supremacist idea that black people, basically 70% of black people are stupid, is what he's saying. And to add on to that stupidity, because he's basing it on nothing, just his racist attitudes. There are people on the icing on top of that stupid cake. Is there plenty of black people who will let him come up on their panels and say it repeatedly for years unchallenged? So again, willful ignorance is the biggest form of stupidity that I run into on Black YouTube, quote, Black YouTube and beyond.
Repeated to say that the wisest man in the ancient world was Socrates. Socrates famously said that the only thing I know is that I know nothing at all, which is an example of ignorance. But the reason why he wasn't stupid was that because he spent his life devoted to trying to resolve that. In his works, The Nicomachean Ethics and the Politics, Aristotle says that one of the worst things that can befall any society is what the ancient Greeks called amathia. Now, amathia is willful ignorance. It's when somebody celebrates the fact they don't know something and they take no steps to resolve it. And in the ancient world, we can...
Sound familiar? Well, I don't need books. I only trust what I see or what I hear. I don't actually go out and acquire knowledge. Books? I don't read books.
Trace a line from Socrates to Plato to the Stoics, which associates knowledge with immorality and being wrong. The idea was that the more you know, the better you become. And so amathia is the great curse. It's a great contagion because there is this rise in people who no longer want to know things. They celebrate the fact they don't know things. And there's a kind of inverse elitism where those who do know things are mocked and ridiculed. So that's the second example of stupidity according to Bonhoeffer. Now, the third element of stupidity is conformity. And this is what Bonhoeffer saw from his prison cell in 1943. He saw people who he grew up with, people who were educated in the same university systems. people who went to the same schools as him. And suddenly they became part of this Nazi operation. And so with conformity, it reminds me of something that Nietzsche says in his work Beyond Good and Evil. In his work Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche has an entire chapter devoted to truth. And in the work, Nietzsche argues that philosophers and academics and writers often become obsessed with this idea of truth, that truth has a value in and of itself. And he says, if you look at the history of humanity, if you look at where we are today, people don't care about truth as a thing. What matters more is loyalty, and what matters more is identity. So, for example, in 2022, a philosopher called Chris Renali wrote a paper about indoctrination. And he was trying to answer the question, what is it that makes somebody indoctrinated? How can we define indoctrination? And Renali argues that indoctrination is not defined by believing one thing or believing another thing. It's when you close your citadel to any alternative positions. It's when you associate your belief with an identity. You are that belief. And so you see any rivals to that position as a kind of test of faith. You see any rivals.
Yeah, this happens a lot also. You know, if I don't know how many times I've been on a panel and they'll, I don't know, something about, well, do you think women should be subservient? And my response is always, if that suits the, the needs of the relationship or the situation. I think women do have a natural tendency, and men have their natural tendencies, but that is not like something that is cookie cutter. 50-50, most relationships aren't 50-50 in the moment. Maybe if you average it over the years, but sometimes women know better about a situation than a man does, vice versa.
As a kind of temptation. So the indoctrinated person doesn't belong to any one camp. It's not the atheist, it's not the believer, it's not the right wing, or it's not the left wing. It's how you keep those beliefs. And what Renali is saying is what Bonhoeffer was saying as well, that when we conform to some kind of groupthink, we are surrendering our own ability to do critical thinking, and we are offloading it to somebody else to do for us. A writer and a philosopher called Robert Musil developed a distinction between what he called ordinary stupidity and intelligent stupidity. Now, ordinary stupidity is what a lot of people might associate with cognitive ability. Some people just can't do certain things. I can't do flat pack very well. But intelligent stupidity is when somebody who is otherwise incredibly able, somebody who is otherwise incredibly talented, articulate, erudite, uses their abilities for some foolish end. And what Musil and Bonhoeffer were writing about and what they were talking about was, of course, Nazism. Here you had a system that was populated by intelligent people, and yet they were using their abilities for an incredibly foolish end. So the reason why Bonhoeffer says that stupidity is a greater problem than evil is because with evil, you have a known problem. There is some intention to the malice. So when you have the evil person, we're thinking the Dark Lord Sauron from Lord of the Rings, dressed in black with orcs and fiery volcanoes. That's obviously evil. But likewise, in our world, we have people who are serial killers or genocidal tyrants or people who we know to be evil. And when you can point at something which is evil, what happens is that the good of the world can rally round and they can resist the evil. Bonhoeffer's got this quotation where he says that evil contains within it the germ of its own subversion. Because once you know something is evil, the good people of Minas Tirith can gather round and they can fight the Dark Lord Sauron. But there are two problems with stupidity. The first is that as a society, we are much more tolerant of it. If somebody says they don't know something and they don't want to take steps to know that thing, we kind of brush it off. We say, oh, that's what they're like, and we kind of accept that. But the second problem with stupidity is that it's
and this is going to be a little bit of a philosophical point. This is where the tolerance of stupidity bumps right up against liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I mean, you actually have a right to be stupid. Okay. Nobody can force you to not be stupid. So you got that tension there, like minute by minute, probably in everyone's lives frequently at some point or another, where, and I run into it a fuck of a lot on YouTube. Sometimes I actually do get frustrated, because someone's just obviously out to lunch on some point, and you can't force them to research or read somebody that you recommend or anything like that. At some point, you just have to let it go. And that also bumps up against what I'm going to talk about in this CM situation after the video.
Far harder to identify. So, for example, not everything is the Dark Lord Sauron. Not everybody is a serial killer. Not everybody is a genocidal tyrant. But in our time, of course, we have real-life evil people. For example, I'm thinking in the UK, we had the Jimmy Savile scandal. In 2012, Jimmy Savile was exposed as abusing children. And of course, that is an evil. And the good of the world rallied round. The judicial system and the police and all of the witnesses came out and they opposed this very obvious, explicit evil. In 2017, you had Harvey Weinstein. Similar there. The good of the world rallied round. The judicial system worked. Police came out. Harvey Weinstein was arrested. He is now in prison. And of course, very recently, you have the Epstein files. These are obvious evils. And in each case, you have somebody who is evil eventually being put into prison, or in the case of Savile, he was dead. But the question that comes after that is, who knew about what was going on? Who are the people who didn't ask questions? Who are the people who were willfully blind? Who are the people who were stupid in the Bonhoeffer sense? Because in the Nazi regime, there's a character called Albert Speer who embodies this quite well. Albert Speer was a very intelligent and educated person, and he was Hitler's architect. He ended up becoming the Minister for Munitions and Production in the Nazi system. And when it came to the end of the war and he was put on trial at the Nuremberg trials, he said he didn't know anything. He said he didn't know about the Holocaust. He didn't know about all of the trains. He didn't know about all of the evils of the Nazi machinery. And the people at Nuremberg said to him, this is ridiculous. You are an intelligent person. There is no possible way you didn't know what was going on. And so he was arrested and he was put in prison. He wasn't executed, like some of the Nazi regime were executed, but people said that you should have known better. Your stupidity in that instance was not an excuse. So that's why stupidity is such a harder thing to find. And it's why Bonhoeffer thinks it's actually worse than evil, because it's part of the system and it drags down institutions and it makes everybody far more corrupt and worse off. So there's a great quotation which has been floating around the internet for a very long time now, from the earlier days of the internet. And it says that debating an idiot is like playing chess with a pigeon. You can play as well as you want, but the pigeon will jump on the board, it'll crap on the pieces, and it'll go back to its flock declaring victory. And it's a brilliant quotation, and it's a brilliant visual, because it is so true as to what it feels like when you are debating somebody who is stupid in the sense of Bonhoeffer. When you're debating somebody who is stupid in the sense of Bonhoeffer, they don't question their own beliefs, and they are unwilling to accept any contrary position to what they actually believe. They're playing by different rules. You might approach them with facts and the most logical arguments you can possibly devise, but they will see you as an enemy. They will see you as an other.
This is why I don't like debating, quote debating, what they try to do over in that Raging Tomato Powder Dusty world, where they literally have shows about, with people debating each other. I generally just shake my head at that. I want nothing to do with that. Philosophers don't debate. Not that I'm a philosopher, but they don't debate. They discuss, maybe. The Socratic method is not a debating style or technique.
See you as a kind of temptation. And so it's very interesting that in our language, we often have a few examples where people will try to repel any contrary position using certain words. And these can belong to whatever different denomination or different ever belief system. So for example, if somebody says trust the science. Now, if we dig into what trust the science means, it makes sense. You go away and you look at some peer-reviewed papers. You look at what the consensus of the experts are saying. You look at some studies online, whatever. When someone says trust the science, it's often used as a kind of batting away of any opposition to you. Another example might be do your own research. Again, on paper, it looks like a good thing. Go away and Google and find out what's going on yourself. But if somebody says do your research, it's often used as a way to try to reduce you as an alternative position. So the reason why debating an idiot is
Yeah,
so
I do
difficult
that
is
all the
because they are
time.
playing by a different rule system. In Aristotle's rhetoric, he actually makes a distinction between three different types of persuading somebody, or three different ways that people often come to believe something. He talks about logos, which is rationality, it's reason, and it's using good debate and facts and evidence. He talks about ethos, which is somebody's character, their reputation, their status, and the ability to persuade you. And he talks about pathos, which is emotions. He talks about feelings. And Aristotle, even in the ancient Greek world, this is, the epitome of the rational philosopher. He is well aware that logos plays second place to your ethos and your pathos as well. So if we pull that up to the modern time, the same thing is at play here. That when you are debating somebody, you may think that you are both playing by logos. That if I lay out my argument in premises to conclusion, if I lay out all of the evidence, this person is going to bow to me and say, well done, you are so brilliant, your position is better, and I will believe what you are saying. And what Bonhoeffer is saying about the stupid person, the pigeon on the chessboard, is that they don't even care about the logos. They care about the ethos, they care about the pathos. And so you need to play it according to their game if you're going to have any kind of proper debate and discussion. So when we're talking about
When people move goalposts, when people don't answer questions, that's exactly what's happening. I often tell people, can we just stick to what we're talking about before we move on to, what you want to talk about? And usually doesn't work, but at least I'm pointing out that, hey, we were talking about A and you want to drag it over to B.
About stupidity, we often imagine somebody in our heads. We often imagine a certain type of person. It might be somebody in our own life. It might be somebody that we've met quite recently. But Nathan Ballantyne, who's a philosopher, he actually argues that stupidity can take many different forms and it can come from many different angles. And he talks about a particular phenomenon known as epistemic trespassing, which exists within academia. So the most intelligent, the most able, the most educated people you know can also be guilty of this intellectual stupidity. Ballantyne talks about domain specificity, which is where you know your area particularly well. So, for example, it might be that an astrophysicist is incredibly knowledgeable about stars, about black holes, about the movement of planets. But epistemic trespassing is when the astrophysics thinks that because they know so much about this one area, they will also be able to tell you about another area. So epistemic trespassing, for example, is when the astrophysics thinks they know about political science. But it could be also when a car mechanic thinks they know.
Oh boy, I've never heard it called epistemic trespass. This is rampant. And I'm, oh, excuse me, folks. I am so sorry. I am prone to this type of trespass as well. But it's rampant, not only on YouTube, but, out in the public intellectual space. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about Thomas Sowell for a segment, if not maybe the whole post-news show. Talk about epistemic trespass. Oh, boy.
Know about tree surgery. It could be when a doctor thinks they know about economics. Epistemic trespassing, according to Ballantyne, often has two causes. The first is what he calls intellectual pride. If you are at the top of your game and you've got all of these accolades, you've got all of this praise, you get these awards, you get this kind of body of students who are waiting on your every word, that's a kind of ego boost. It's a kind of encouragement. You get this intellectual pride from all of that. And so you therefore think that you can walk into different disciplines, different areas, and you can tell them what is true and what is false. And the second problem is an overestimation of what is called transferable skills. So transferable skills are things that will apply across a whole range of disciplines. So at a basic level, the ability to read is a transferable skill. The astrophysicist can read, the economist can read, the neuroscientist can read, the tree surgeon can all read. These are all transferable skills, but also writing an essay is a transferable skill. The ability to analyze data is a transferable skill. So Ballantyne argues that epistemic trespassers are often guilty of overestimating their own transferable skills. They assume that just because they can analyze data in one area, that they can analyze data in another area without considering the wider knowledge that is required to make sense of that data set. So what Bannatyne is saying is that stupidity isn't limited to any one particular type of person. It can be anywhere. It can be in the academy. It can be an incredibly intelligent person who steps outside of their lane. So Chris Rinaldi in 2022 wrote a paper into indoctrination, and he was trying to look at the factors that make somebody indoctrinated. And he is quite clear early on in his paper to make the distinction that anybody can become indoctrinated. It doesn't matter whether you are a Christian or an atheist or left-wing or right-wing or a meat eater or a vegan, whatever. Anyone can become indoctrinated insofar as how they hold their beliefs. Now, the difference is that the indoctrinated person will see every rival to their belief system as a kind of enemy. They are so used to associating their belief with a certain identity that if anybody comes along and challenges that belief, they will see them as a kind of opposition. For example, in the online discourse, it's very common to attack what's called mainstream media. Now, there is a certain brand of conspiracy theory which will say that if any evidence, any article, any position is presented to them from the mainstream media, well, the mainstream media are the enemy. They'll immediately discount this information. They'll immediately discount this article because it was written by a certain person, by a certain outlet, by a certain publication. That's an example of what Rinaldi would call indoctrination. They are so used to viewing the enemy in certain areas that they will not take anything that they say as worth considering. Now, that's the first part of Rinaldi's paper, but the second part of Rinaldi's paper asks the slightly more difficult question, how can we resolve this? Because if we are aware of indoctrinated people in our lives, and we have to be aware that we also ourselves might be indoctrinated in certain key areas, I suspect that most people watching this, and myself included, are indoctrinated in certain areas, that I will reject information, I will reject evidence if it's presented to me by a certain person in a certain way or about a certain topic. And so Rinaldi is asking, how can we resolve that? And the clearest example is to give a kind of off-ramp, because challenging your beliefs is difficult. And challenging your beliefs is very difficult when you associate those beliefs with a certain identity. And so you need to create an environment where criticizing a belief or doubting a belief is considered to be safe. Now, this is where we have to lean on our friend Aristotle again, because in this case, logos will only get us so far. Rationality, logic, laying out evidence will only take you up to the door. But to go through the door, you need to have a certain ethos. You need to have a certain character. You need to have a certain warmth of personality. And so when we're discussing ideas with somebody, we should always bear in mind how important it is to have that kind of warmth, to develop a relationship with someone where you can criticize or discuss these ideas in an open way without it feeling confrontational. So there are many examples of when stupidity can be funny, and particularly when it's associated with ignorance. For example, at Christmas, my stepbrother turned to me and said, "Do reindeer exist?" I said, "Yes, they do exist." And we all had a laugh. And if somebody says, for example, what was Hitler's surname, that's funny. We might have a bit of a giggle about it. Those are examples of harmless ignorance. Now, Bonhoeffer says that isn't the same as stupidity. Now, stupidity becomes dangerous when it walks through the corridors of power. Stupidity becomes dangerous when we surrender our own critical thinking and we outsource it to somebody else. It's when we let a political party, a group, a tribal identity do the thinking for us. Because what happens then is you kind of go through a kind of zombie state where you will be pushed along by people who may have malicious intent. So, for example, if somebody is sharing a conspiracy theory in the pub with you over a few beers, they talk about being a flat earther, for example, that might be funny. You might joke about it. But if an education board is teaching flat earth to students, that's when it becomes a problem. Because the institution itself is allowing a sense of willful stupidity where you accept not knowing as the default. And that's when it becomes a problem in the sense that it occupies power. If we agree with Bonhoeffer, if we even partially agree with Bonhoeffer, that stupidity is a greater danger to society than evil, and we agree with Aristotle that amathia is the greatest threat to civilization, then how can we resolve that? What steps can we all take to remove stupidity from society? Well, I would argue that there are three things that we can do. There's a personal thing we can do, there's an interpersonal thing, and there's a societal, institutional thing we can do. On the personal level, I think we can all dig up, scrutinize, and analyze our beliefs. We can accept, we can reject, or modify our beliefs. And I think we can do this in three different ways, each with varying degrees of intensity. The first step is, I think we can take a leaf from Karl Popper's book. Karl Popper introduced this idea of falsification, where he says a theory is good insofar as it can resist any falsification. And if there is no falsifying data available to it, or you do not present that theory with falsifying data, then the hypothesis, the theory, the belief is bad. So, for example, I think that all of us have certain beliefs that we are not entirely sure on. For example, in my head, I'm not entirely sure about my meat eating. I'm not entirely sure whether I should be eating meat or whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And so Popper would say what you need to do is go away and you need to introduce yourself to as many falsifying arguments as you possibly can. Read arguments from vegans, read arguments from vegetarians, maybe look at some kind of information about battery farms or the latest biology about animal sentience. Go away and challenge your own belief. That's the first thing we could all do individually. Escape your echo chamber. The second thing is interpersonal. And this links back to what Chris Rinaldi was saying about indoctrination, is that when we are talking with somebody else, appreciate that beliefs are not just specimens on the table that we can dissect and poke. They are deeply personal. We are all involved in our beliefs, and certain beliefs are so personal to us that we will reject them viscerally. When somebody challenges certain beliefs, we object to them because we feel as though they are attacking who we are. For example, when I was growing up, Pluto was a planet. I'm not even sure if it is a planet anymore, whether it's an exoplanet, whether it's a star or moon, I don't even know. But the point is, that's what the philosopher William James would call a dead belief to me. My life goes on. I don't really care if Pluto's a planet or not, and I can go about my life quite happily not knowing it is. But there are certain beliefs which do matter to me. And there are certain beliefs, for example, about parenting, about my family, about my friends, about my work life, and about exercise, and about eating, about whatever. These things do matter to me. So these beliefs are important. So we should always appreciate that when we are discussing those live beliefs and those important beliefs and what James calls momentous beliefs, we should always appreciate there is a degree of personality to them. We should be personable. We should be warm. We should allow people to defend themselves and not make the debate an issue of personality. Now, the best way to do this, and the best person that embodies this, is Socrates. If you look back in Plato's dialogue, Socrates is somebody who discusses the conversation in a very non-confrontational way, and he does so by asking open questions. He's not saying you're wrong. He's not offering counterpositions. He's not calling anyone names. He's not calling you stupid or idiotic or evil. He's asking questions. And over the course of the dialogues, they are condensed dialogues. In some ways, it might be a very romanticized account of what a Socratic dialogue looks like. But over the course of the conversation, both parties are better. Both parties have analyzed their beliefs. Both parties have stronger beliefs as a result of it. So that's the key element there. In interpersonal belief systems, always approach it from a Socratic position, I would argue. Now, the third thing is institutional. And this is where we need to allow, we need to create, and we need to foster a culture of dissent and debate. In 2018, two writers, Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt, wrote a book called How Democracies Die. And they were laying out the various factors that lead to the collapse of a democracy. They looked at history, and of course, they applied history to the modern day. And two key elements jump out for me. The first is an abuse of power. This is when a president, a prime minister, a Congress, a parliament oversteps their constitutional or their historical power. But the second, and to my mind, more important element is where we illegitimize an opposition. It's when you start to say that the opponents are monstrous, they are evil, they are satanic, they are demonic, and they should be struck off. We shouldn't allow any dissent within this organization. We shouldn't allow any rival positions in this Congress, in this parliament. So what they're arguing in How Democracies Die is when those two factors emerge, democracies will suffer. But of course, we see it in institutions as well. We see it in corporations and businesses. We see it when leaders will make decisions without any consultation whatsoever. So what I would argue is in an institutional level, we should think about committees. We should think about debate. We should invite and welcome dissent. I interviewed a philosopher called Sebastian Purcell a few weeks ago about Aztec philosophy. I don't know anything about Aztec philosophy. And Purcell introduced me to an idea that I can't really get out of my head, actually, and I love it. It's known as the Aztec decision circle. And Purcell taught me that when an Aztec was confronted with a difficult decision, or they didn't know what to believe or what to do, they would consult their decision circle. It might be 4, 5, 6 very close friends, relatives, who will offer them advice, but crucially, they will offer them dissent. They will offer them an alternative position. And Purcell has an entire chapter in his book saying the wise do not think for themselves. And I love that idea. I love that idea of a decision circle. And I love the idea of consulting people who will also dissent.
Okay. So that kind of presents my the opening premise, or gambit, or whatever you want to call it. Let's see here. There we go. So the other things I want to address, and this isn't going to be a long show, by the way. Not intended to be. The show almost didn't happen. I kept pushing it back. But well, I guess I'll just, look at my brief discussion, and it was via Discord. CM and I actually I mean, I guess we DM. I mean, we really haven't been DMing back and forth. I don't even know that we're on a mutual server. I have no idea. Probably. But bottom line is that, and I listened to a bit of CM's show. I was in the chat, of course, roasting him. But he seems, well, his overall premise, and one thing that he literally typed in Discord is, if I would have stopped talking so much shit, it wouldn't have come to this. And my response to that is, your problem is I'm better at the shit talk than you are, and I'm relentless. If you really want to get into a shit talk back and forth, I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to escalate. So he needs to be better at shit talking, or develop a thicker skin, because I'm not going to stop. As I told him, I don't plan on altering my behavior. What I say, how I say it, to whom I say it, one little bit. Even if the strike holds, it's only one strike. I didn't have any strikes. So, I didn't realize that if a live stream gets struck, you can't live stream for 7 days. If it happens on, one of your past live streams, it doesn't affect you at all. You just get the strike, but you don't get the 7-day suspension. But even if it's 7 days, I can still upload videos. I can still upload shorts. I can still go on other streams. So, it's a little bit of a restriction, but it's not that big a deal. It's not gonna take my channel down unless I have 2 strikes. So all I can say is, he doesn't seem to realize that he is not like top dog in this space. Again, people didn't even want to fucking talk to him last night or hear his side of the story, because he's the first person in the 2 or 3 years that I've been, up on panels or doing a show. He's literally the first person I've ever known to get into someone's chat, say, I'm going to strike it, and then strike it. Now, maybe it's happened, just not in my experience. So everybody knows who did it. He's been going around bragging about it. This morning he did a show about it. But here I am, back live. I could have gone live last night or this morning, but I was just, I've been up all night and I just wasn't feeling like doing it. So here is what I propose. CM needs to stay the fuck out of my chat. And I told him this. If you can't take the roasting, then stay out of my fucking chat. Okay? If you're not in the chat garnering attention with your, just poison, because he is a very unpleasant person sometimes. Just like unpleasant to be around. Stay out of my chat. If you're not here, I won't be thinking about you. And you know what? He literally this morning, I had no idea he was going live. The dude sent me a post saying, "Hey, why don't you come over here?" He could have done that live, and I never would have known about it until someone happened to mention it later on in the day. So the dude wants to basically talk bullshit, come on over here. And then when I get over there, all of a sudden he's a victim. Dude, nobody has time for that kind of pussy behavior. I'm an adult, and if you fuck with me, I'm going to fuck with you back times 10. I've always been like this. The best thing you can do is don't talk shit. And if you think this is backing up your shit, dude, this is YouTube. Even if I lose the channel, I'll just make a new channel and start over again. Nightish has done it at least 2 or 3 times since I've known him. And all of a sudden he's monetized again. So it doesn't really do what you think it's doing, CM. And the last thing I'll say on the CM topic is, dude, you take, like I said in this Discord, your problem is you're gullible. You keep listening to Ponder and Ryan Bardwell and who else? Another person I'm thinking of. These are all nitwits. Okay, Ponder has no clue. She acts like she's some big expert on YouTube. She has no fucking clue. Is she even a content creator? I don't think she is. Bardwell is literally a weirdo. CM needs to listen to CM. Maybe you go to a CT, but he pisses CT off. He pisses Galt off. He pisses like some of these excuse me. He pisses some of these old heads, quote old heads, pissing American Man off, pissing Galt off. Dude, even I was on a panel with John Galt about a week ago. We were on Mo Love's Bible study show. That's an odd place to for us to meet up on a panel, but it was cordial. As a matter of fact, I went up there to kind of support his stance on a particular topic. Even me and John can be cordial and even productive. Why CM thinks he's the HNIC of YouTube, I don't know. But he's learning slowly but surely. And I think what he did is he obviously thought that I'm some sort of mark. Dude, I will beat your ass rhetorically. I have nothing to lose. This isn't my livelihood. So, my advice to CM, grow up and stop taking bad advice from people like Sin7Sin. She has no fucking clue. Other than being a good troll, I don't think that woman has any valuable life skills that she need teach another adult. So that's my take on it. And as far as I'm concerned, Sim, don't come up to my panel. And I prefer it. And I told him this in the Discord. Don't come into my chat unless you can take what you get. You come in hot, you're going to get a hot reception. You're not welcome to my panel. Don't even bother. I'm done with you. The other content creators, they have shows to run. They can decide how to deal with you. Who knows? I might go into your chat if the topic is interesting, but we're done. So you do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do. But if you can't man up and take the heat that you want to dish out, no need for us to interact, especially on my show. and I will review your shit whenever I want to review your shit. I'm not going to back down from that, especially if I alter the content to make it mine. So good luck. So the next thing I want to talk about, and this will be real brief. I was just in Gospel of Bob's chat. I don't even, damn it. I should have written it down. It was something that Skywalker said. It was an amazing thing. And this is not a criticism, by the way. I don't have a problem with Skywalker. It's just, I hadn't been in Bob's chat in months. It's just not my cup of tea, generally. But Skywalker, this Nolan case, whatever his name is, it is beyond me why cases like Carmelo Anthony and, Nolan and all these, why do people get so personally involved in them? Maybe Skywalker, well, no, this is in Mississippi. I maybe could see why a Texas person might get into the Carmelo Anthony thing. But what amazed me is Skywalker came up with a whole narrative. It was like he was writing a play before our eyes, talking about intent, talking about, his youth, how groups of friends, when some of them wanted to leave, it was like a very nuanced narrative, none of it fact-based. So, I guess if you're that much invested, you'll come up. There's an old Talking Heads song. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's Susie's in the bedroom inventing situations, which I always took to be, someone writing a novel or a play or something. He's literally inventing situations to talk about this particular ongoing case. And I know it's a show, I know it's entertainment, but I just don't get why people get so personally invested in these national cases instead of just letting the experts deal with it. And people will say, oh, it's the media getting us stirred up and stuff like that. I can't say that's not true, but it's still a mystery to me. What's up, Uncle Jack? How you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Y'all can hit the link if you want it. It'll drop if it hasn't, or it's somewhere up in the chat. One other thing I don't think the people realized is that about 90% of the time that I live stream on YouTube, I'm also streaming to Kick. I'm also streaming to Twitch. So had the channel still been struck, I would have gone live, whenever on Twitch, especially. What I am going to do starting tomorrow is I need to write a script with all my Twitch and Kick information. And Rumble just seems to be complicated. There's stuff that I actually have to research as far as streaming keys and stuff. I have actually once tested a stream to Facebook. I have an X account, but I think you have to pay for like X, what is it, X Extreme or whatever the elevated account is. So at some point I may add a third, but you can stream to multiple platforms from StreamYard, and people like CM need to understand that YouTube is not the only game in town. I actually recently got a TikTok account to watch Shara's cooking show. I haven't thought about streaming to it. I think to TikTok you have to meet some thresholds, but y'all need to stop thinking YouTube is the only streaming platform. There are better platforms. I know people who shit on YouTube because they don't think it's the best platform. Oh, do you really? What's up? Moki Pies? Is that how you pronounce it? Welcome to the channel. First time I've seen you. I actually have a Rumble account. I had a Rumble account to watch SKC and what's his name? Who I haven't seen it around. I used to, damn it, what's his name? The Crow. I can't even think of his name right now. So it's just Rumble. You have to actually do some research. Say YouTube or Twitch, it's literally automatic. If you got a Google account, it's all automatic. You just click a few buttons and supply an address or something, and you're good to go. Rumble, you have to enter a lot of information manually and research it. And I'm much too lazy to do that unless I have to. Hey, Chocolate Earth, how you doing? Hey, Mariah. So, somebody hit the link if you want to chat about this situation. I don't really have anything else. It's going to be short and sweet. Hopefully, I have a live schedule for tomorrow. And by the way, the thumbnail, Speak Radio came up with it off on the fly. And once again, dude, he just gets the show. It's my favorite thumbnail so far. So, salute to Speak Radio. And while I'm at it, support the show by supporting the host. All the Cash App and PayPal information is in the chat somewhere. And it's also on the screen. So don't be shy. Also, what Speak Radio does, contributing ideas or art, that's contributions to the show and are very well valued as much as, the monetary stuff. So we will have a Saturday show, and that's probably where I'm going to pick up the review that I did a couple days ago. Or, you know what? I said CM shouldn't even bother coming into my chat. It's possible I just go, fuck CM. I'm moving on. I got the channel back. He understands that if you're going to strike a channel, it's not just striking the channel. You actually have to get legal stuff accomplished. And if he wants to go forward with it, I'll scrape together some pennies and win it because I know I'm right. So, it's up to him. He can just drop the shit and move on. Oh, I need more than a hot toddy, but send me some cough drops. I haven't taken anything for it other than ibuprofen for body aches. But I'm, like I said, if I wasn't talking, I'd be perfectly fine. So if no one's going to come up to the chat, I should be back tomorrow. Like I said, I watched a couple things today specifically about this new vibe that MAGA is putting out about democratic socialists. And while I'm not necessarily a democratic socialist, I think what MAGA is doing is despicable. And I also want to talk about Thomas Sowell, because he is literally something Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, said, basically using a theme that Thomas Sowell put out back in like 1999. Fascinating. How talk about history rhyming. It's rhyming right now. And Thomas Sowell all of a sudden rears his 95-year-old head. And he's a hot property. Thomas Sowell. Yeah, okay, Con. So, speak. Yeah. Give me one sec. So, again, and let me also say this. I cannot tell you, Art, and Latino and Jewel, dude, we have all had our little run-ins and tiffs, but those people are so supportive. And dude, I know I can be a bit of a chore. So, that's why it makes it special. Jewel, Latino, standouts. And then, there's also Mariah and Furious. But Mariah's my special person for sure. But Latino, Jewel, and there are others. Speak Radio's another one. As wordy as I can be, I honestly can't express the honor of having people support me. So one of these days we'll even be monetized, but I don't tilt at windmills much. If I think I'm right and I've convinced myself I'm right, I'm going to stay the course. And CM doesn't understand that. I have nothing to lose but a YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, I mentioned it earlier. Tomorrow I'll have a script that's going to drop the Twitch and Kick information. I also have a spare YouTube channel under another account. I will also put that in the chat and then ask people to subscribe to them all, if they can. And, just in case, because now I know that somebody has a bounty on my head, to use CM's terms. So let's see what's in the chat. What's up, Joshua? How you doing? How do I not have a? Well, I do have a Rumble account. I just haven't set up the ability to stream. I may actually have to get with Portia on that because she knows the process because she did it for Galt. But yeah, that is coming. How it is. You never really set up the emergency procedures until the actual emergency. I fell into that groove. So it's on me. But as I said, my streaming to Kick, I'm not doing it now, but I will for tomorrow's show. I stream other places, so I will stream. It's just a matter of people knowing where I'm going to stream to. Oh, can you? Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I have to explore that tomorrow then, Speak Radio. And let's see. Hold on one sec here. The other thing I'm doing is I'm still porting apps and stuff like that over to my son's old iPhone. So I need to switch out the SIM card. I said I was going to do it last week, but never got around to it. Well, my goodness. Speak Radio, thank you so much, sir. You will definitely be first among the sponsors of the Saturday show, and you're already an executive producer. Let me bring that up, by the way. These are the executive producers, many of them monetary or something equal to monetary. And those are Brooklyn Watson, the CKJ3, the Dirty Dude, the Lupin Reiging, and the Speak Radio. So thank you to the executives. And by the way, all these people at one point in time have also contributed show ideas. So keep those show ideas coming because it spares me from talking about boring politics all the time. So, all right, folks. Well, if nobody's going to hit that link, I'm going to wrap it up for the night. And let's see, what did Joshua say? Oh, he's talking to Khan. So, folks, I enjoyed it. Sorry for the kerfuffle, but it will all work out in the end. Should be seeing y'all around the normal time tomorrow. And thank you all for stopping by. By the way, share this out. If you know somebody who might be interested in these sorts of topics, please recommend the show. Hey, Tina. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but obviously there's some fuckery around here that's entertaining every now and again. So I shall see everyone tomorrow. Tina, sorry you didn't get to hit the link, but who knows? I may see you on another channel if I wake up in the middle of the night. So I will see everyone tomorrow.